The slap echoed across the parking lot like a gunshot. Victoria Patterson's hand connected with the 8-year-old boy's face, leaving a red mark blooming across his cheek. Tears streamed down his face as he stumbled backward, but no one moved. No one spoke. They just watched until the grandmother stepped forward. She was 52 years old, wearing a janitor's gray polo, still holding a mop bucket. The wealthy parents smirked. The principal looked away, and then she spoke, her voice cold as steel. "Apologize to my son." Victoria laughed. "Or what? You'll mop me to death." She had no idea. The woman she'd just challenged had killed more enemies than Victoria had hired housekeepers, and she was about to find out. The mop bucket squeaked against the polished floor of Westbrook Academy's main corridor, and Margaret Thornton didn't look up. She never looked up anymore. 52 years old, gray streaks threading through hair. She kept pulled back tight, and hands that had once held weapons now wrapped around a wooden mop handle. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as she worked her way past the trophy cases, past the framed photographs of smiling donors, past the brass plaques commemorating generations of privilege she would never belong to. "Excuse me." The voice came from behind her, sharp and impatient. Maggie stepped aside without turning, pressing her bucket against the wall to make room. Two women walked past, designer bags, swinging heels clicking in that particular rhythm of people who expected the world to move for them. "They really should schedule maintenance after hours," one of them said, loud enough to be heard. "It's Parent Showcase Day, for God's sake." "I know. You'd think they'd have some awareness." Maggie kept mopping. She'd learned a long time ago that silence was a weapon. The deadliest one, sometimes. The kind that let you observe, assess, and wait. The kind that kept you alive when everything inside you wanted to react. 28 years in naval special warfare had taught her that. But these women didn't know that. Nobody at Westbrook Academy knew that. To them, she was just Margaret the cleaning lady, the one who emptied trash cans and scrubbed toilets and existed in the margins of their gilded lives. And that was exactly how she wanted it. "Mrs. Thornton." Maggie turned at the sound of her name. A young teacher, barely 25, stood in the doorway of a nearby classroom. Sarah Mitchell, 3rd grade. One of the few staff members who bothered to learn the custodian's name. "The boys' bathroom on the 2nd floor has a situation," Sarah said, apologetic. "I'm so sorry to add to your load today, but I'll take care of it." "Thank you. And hey," Sarah lowered her voice, "I saw Ethan at lunch today. He seemed quiet. Is everything okay?" Something flickered in Maggie's chest. A pulse of worry that never quite went away. "He's adjusting," she said carefully. "New school, new everything." Sarah nodded with genuine sympathy. "It can't be easy. If there's anything I can do, you're doing it. Just treat him like any other kid." "Of course." Maggie pushed her bucket toward the stairwell, but Sarah's words echoed in her mind. He seemed quiet. That wasn't like Ethan. Her grandson was 8 years old, full of questions and laughter, and an energy that reminded her so much of his mother, it sometimes took her breath away. His mother. Rachel. Maggie's daughter. The one who'd followed in her footsteps, joined the teams, became one of the finest operators Maggie had ever seen. The one who'd been killed 3 years ago, protecting a convoy of children in a place whose name Maggie couldn't say without her throat closing. Now, Rachel's son lived with his grandmother in a small apartment on the edge of the school district, attending Westbrook Academy on a military-dependent scholarship that some of the wealthy parents resented like a personal insult. "Your mother would be so proud of you, Ethan." Maggie thought it every day, said it out loud every night when she tucked him in. But she wondered sometimes if he believed her. The second-floor bathroom situation turned out to be a clogged toilet and paper towels scattered across the floor like confetti. Maggie handled it in 15 minutes, her movements efficient and practiced. She'd cleaned worse, she'd seen worse, she'd been worse. But that was another life, another woman. Now she was just Maggie, and that was enough. She checked her watch. 2:47 p.m. School would let out at 3:15, and she'd promised Ethan they could walk home together today. Parent Showcase Day meant the usual after-school chaos would be worse than normal, with luxury cars clogging the pickup lane and parents lingering to network and compare achievements. Maggie tried to avoid those crowds, not because she was ashamed of who she was, but because she'd learned that invisibility was protection, for her and for Ethan. The wealthy parents of Westbrook Academy didn't understand poverty, didn't understand sacrifice, didn't understand that sometimes the people cleaning their children's schools had done things, seen things, survived, things that would shatter their privileged little worlds. And Maggie didn't need them to understand. She just needed them to leave her grandson alone. The showcase was in full swing when Maggie made her way back to the first floor. The main lobby had been transformed into a display of student artwork and academic achievements, with parents milling about in cocktail attire, despite it being a Wednesday afternoon. Maggie kept to the edges, invisible in her gray polo and practical shoes. She spotted Victoria Patterson near the center of the room, holding court like she always did. The principal's wife, 45 years old, blonde hair immaculately styled, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Maggie's monthly rent, surrounded by her circle of equally polished women, all of them laughing at something Victoria had just said. Maggie felt nothing toward the woman. Not hatred, not envy, nothing. Victoria Patterson existed in a different universe, one where problems meant delayed deliveries and disappointing country club menus. Just get through the day, Maggie told herself. Pick up Ethan. Go home. Make dinner. Everything else is noise. She was almost to the storage closet when she heard it. A child crying. Maggie stopped. Her head turned automatically body, orienting toward the sound like a compass finding north. It was a skill she'd developed over decades, the ability to isolate a single voice from chaos to locate a target in a crowd. The crying was coming from the east hallway, near the side entrance, near where parents sometimes went to smoke or make private phone calls away from the showcase noise. Not your business, part of her said. Keep moving. But another part, the part that had made her one of the most effective operators in naval special warfare history, was already walking toward the sound. She rounded the corner and stopped. Ethan was pressed against the wall, his small body curled in on itself, tears streaming down his face. 3 children stood around him in a semicircle, 2 boys and a girl, all wearing the expensive casual clothes of Westbrook's elite families. The girl was Madison Patterson, the principal's daughter, 9 years old, with her mother's blonde hair and her mother's cruel smile. Say it again, Madison commanded. Say, my grandma cleans toilets. Ethan shook his head, his voice breaking. Leave me alone. You have to say it. Those are the rules. You're on scholarship, which means you do what we say. One of the boys stepped forward. Come on, toilet boy. Just say it and we'll let you go. I'm not a toilet boy. Your grandma cleans toilets. That makes you a toilet boy. It's just logic. Madison laughed. Maybe we should make him clean our toilets, like training for his future career. Something cold and precise settled into Maggie's chest. She recognized it. Welcomed it almost. It was the feeling that came before action, before decisions that couldn't be undone. The absolute clarity of purpose. But this wasn't a mission. This was a school. And these were children. She forced herself to breathe, to assess, to choose the measured response instead of the instinctive one. "Ethan!" Her voice cut through the hallway like a blade. All 4 children turned. Ethan's face crumpled with relief when he saw her. "Grandma." Madison's expression shifted from cruelty to dismissal. "Oh, the cleaning lady." Maggie walked forward, her pace unhurried but deliberate. She stopped beside Ethan, placed one hand on his shoulder, felt him trembling beneath her palm. "What happened here?" "Nothing," Madison said quickly. "We were just talking." "Ethan?" Her grandson looked up at her eyes red and wet. They said I don't belong here. That Mom's scholarship was charity for losers. That's enough," Madison interrupted. "We didn't say any of that." Maggie looked at the 3 children. She'd faced down insurgents, terrorists, warlords who dealt in human suffering. She'd interrogated men who would rather die than reveal their secrets. She knew how to read lies the way most people read books. These children were lying, and they weren't even good at it. "Madison Patterson," Maggie said quietly. "I know your mother." Something flickered in the girl's eyes. Uncertainty. "And I know that if she heard what you just said to my grandson, she would be very disappointed." Madison recovered quickly, chin-lifting with inherited arrogance. "My mother wouldn't care. She says the scholarship program is ruining the school anyway." Maggie felt Ethan flinch beside her. "I see." She kept her voice neutral. "Well, perhaps we should go find your mother right now and ask her." Fear flashed across Madison's face. Just a moment, just enough. "Whatever. We were done talking anyway." She tossed her hair and gestured to the boys. "Come on. This hallway smells like cleaning supplies." They walked away, their laughter echoing off the walls. Maggie waited until they were gone before she knelt down eye level with her grandson. "Ethan, look at me." He met her eyes, his lower lip still trembling. "What they said about you, about your mother's scholarship, none of it is true." "But they said," "I don't care what they said. Your mother earned that scholarship through her service, through her sacrifice. She died protecting people, Ethan, children just like you. And that means you have every right to be here. More right than any of them." Why do they hate me? The question was so small, so broken that Maggie felt something crack in her chest. They don't hate you, sweetheart. They don't even know you. What they hate is that you make them uncomfortable. You remind them that the world is bigger than their expensive cars and their fancy houses. That there are people out there who have given everything for them, and they've given nothing in return. Ethan wiped his nose with his sleeve. "I want to go home." "I know. Soon. The showcase will be over in an hour, and then we'll walk home together." "Okay." He nodded, but his eyes were still haunted. Maggie stood her knees protesting in a way they never used to. She was 52 years old, and some days she felt every one of those years in her bones. "Stay close to me," she said. "We'll wait in the custodian's office until it's time." They walked together through the hallway, Ethan's small hand gripping hers with desperate strength. Maggie's mind was already running calculations, assessing threats, planning contingencies. This isn't sustainable, she thought. The bullying will continue. The harassment will escalate. And eventually, she stopped the thought before it could finish. Stopped herself from going to the dark place where solutions looked very different from parent-teacher conferences and guidance counselor meetings. You're not that person anymore. But she knew deep in her bones that the person she used to be was never really gone. Just waiting. The custodian's office was a small room near the back of the school, cluttered with supplies and equipment, but blessedly quiet. Maggie settled Ethan on a folding chair and handed him a juice box she kept in her locker for exactly this purpose. "Drink this. It'll help." He took it without argument, sucking through the straw while staring at nothing. Maggie watched him, her heart aching with a love so fierce it felt like fire in her chest. He had Rachel's eyes, Rachel's stubborn chin, Rachel's way of going quiet when the world hurt too much to talk about. God, Rachel, I'm trying so hard to do right by him. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, checked the screen. A text from an unknown number. Maggie. Heard you're at Westbrook. Old friend in the area. Drink sometime, JR. She stared at the initials. JR. Jason Ramirez, her former teammate. One of the few people from her old life who still reached out occasionally, who understood what she'd been through, what she'd left behind. She typed back, "Not a good time. Call you later." The response came immediately understood. Stay frosty. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Stay frosty. How many times had she heard those words? How many missions had started with them too many? And not enough. She slipped the phone back into her pocket just as the door opened. Principal Harold Patterson stood in the doorway, late 50s silver hair, wearing a suit that was expensive, but not quite as expensive as his wife's dress. He had the look of a man who'd achieved success through careful politics, rather than genuine ability, the kind of administrator who survived by never making waves. "Mrs. Thornton, I was told I'd find you here." Maggie stood slowly. "Principal Patterson." His eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to her. "I understand there was an incident in the East hallway." There was. "My daughter says your grandson became aggressive with her and her friends." Maggie felt her spine straighten. A micro-movement invisible to most people. But Patterson wasn't most people. He'd been around military families long enough to recognize the shift. "That's not what happened." Madison was very clear. She says Ethan pushed her. Madison is lying. Patterson's face tightened. "That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Thornton. So is accusing an 8-year-old of assault." They stared at each other. Maggie didn't blink, didn't flinch. She'd faced down men who could kill her with their bare hands. Harold Patterson barely registered as a threat. "I understand this is a difficult situation." Patterson said, his tone shifting to something smoother, more practiced. "Ethan has had adjustment issues since he arrived. Perhaps we should discuss additional support resources." "Ethan doesn't need support resources. He needs the other children to stop bullying him." "Bullying is a strong word. I saw it with my own eyes." Patterson smiled thinly. "Children can be cruel sometimes. It's part of growing up. I'm sure Madison didn't mean any harm." Maggie took one step forward. Just one. But it was enough to make Patterson's smile falter. "Your daughter told my grandson that his mother's sacrifice, her death, was charity for losers. She told him he doesn't belong here. She told him his grandmother cleans toilets like it was something to be ashamed of." "I'm sure that's an exaggeration." "It's not." Patterson held up his hands. "Look, Mrs. Thornton, I appreciate your dedication to your grandson. But surely you can understand that children say things they don't mean. And frankly, with the scholarship program being what it is, some tension is inevitable. What does that mean? Excuse me? What does the scholarship program being what it is mean exactly?" Patterson's composure slipped for just a moment. "I simply mean that integration can be challenging. Different backgrounds, different expectations. Surely you can understand." Maggie stared at him. She could see it now. The man who would never defend her grandson. The man who would always protect his daughter and his wife and his precious donor relationships no matter who got hurt. She could also see something else. fear, deep and poorly hidden. He was afraid of her. He didn't know why. Didn't know what she used to be, what she was still capable of. But some animal part of his brain recognized a predator when it saw one. Good, she thought. You should be afraid. I'll be documenting this conversation, she said quietly. Every word, every date, every incident. And if anything happens to my grandson, anything at all, I will make sure the appropriate authorities are notified. Patterson's face went pale. There's no need for threats. That wasn't a threat, Principal Patterson. That was a statement of fact. I don't threaten. She paused, letting the silence stretch. I simply act. She turned, took Ethan's hand, and walked out of the office. Patterson didn't try to stop her. The showcase was ending when Maggie and Ethan emerged from the building's side exit. Parents streamed toward their cars, children in tow, conversations floating through the afternoon air like leaves in wind. Maggie kept her head down, her hand firm on Ethan's shoulder, guiding him toward the walking path that led to their neighborhood. Just a few more minutes, and they'd be clear of this place, clear of the whispers and the stares and the casual cruelty of people who had never sacrificed anything for anyone. Margaret. The voice came from behind them, high and sharp, and carrying that particular edge of wealthy entitlement. Maggie stopped, turned. Victoria Patterson was striding across the parking lot, her heels clicking against the asphalt, her face twisted with fury. Behind her, Madison followed along with two other mothers from Victoria's circle. I want a word with you, Victoria demanded, stopping just feet away. My daughter told me what happened. How dare you threaten her? Maggie felt Ethan press closer to her side. She could feel his heart racing through the thin fabric of his shirt. I didn't threaten your daughter, Mrs. Patterson. I addressed a bullying situation. Bullying? Victoria's laugh was brittle sharp. Madison doesn't bully anyone. She's 9 years old. Old enough to know that calling someone's dead mother charity for losers is wrong. Victoria's eyes widened, then narrowed. Madison didn't say that. Yes, she did. Ethan can confirm it. And so can I. And we're supposed to take the word of a cleaning lady and her scholarship grandson over my daughter. The words hung in the air. Maggie felt something cold settle into her chest. The same coldness she'd felt in the hallway. The same clarity. But this time she let it show in her eyes. Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to give you one chance to walk away from this conversation. Victoria laughed. Actually laughed. Is that a threat? It's an opportunity, one you should take. Oh, this is rich. Victoria turned to the other mothers, gesturing dramatically. The janitor is giving me ultimatums. What's next? Is she going to beat me with her mop? The mothers tittered obediently. Ethan tugged at Maggie's hand. Grandma, let's just go. Victoria's attention snapped to the boy. You're the problem here. Coming to this school on charity, causing trouble, making accusations against my daughter. Don't speak to him. Maggie's voice cut through Victoria's tirade like a blade through silk. The older woman fell silent, eyes widening at the sudden change in tone. I said don't speak to him. Maggie took one step forward. Your daughter bullied my grandson. Your husband tried to bury it, and now you're here in public attacking an 8-year-old child. So let me be clear about something. She took another step. Victoria retreated one. I don't care about your money. I don't care about your status. I don't care about your husband's position or your daughter's feelings or your country club gossip circles. What I care about is that child behind me. And if you ever come at him again, you will regret it in ways you cannot even imagine. Victoria's face had gone white, but something else was building there too. Something stubborn and mean. How dare you? How dare you speak to me that way? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? The question came out soft, almost gentle. But there was nothing gentle in Maggie's eyes. Victoria recovered her courage, fueled by the presence of her friends. You're a nobody, a cleaning lady, someone we pay to scrub our toilets, and you think you can threaten me. She reached out. Maggie never saw where she was aiming Maggie's shoulder, perhaps, or her arm. It didn't matter. The motion triggered reflexes that had been honed over 28 years and thousands of hours of training. Her hand came up, caught Victoria's wrist, twisted just enough to immobilize without injuring. Victoria gasped. Let go of me. Not until you calm down. Help someone help. She's attacking me. The other mothers scattered backward, phones appearing in hands. One of them was already filming. Maggie didn't care. She leaned close to Victoria's ear, her voice low and steady. You grabbed at me first. 3 witnesses saw it, 4 counting your friend's phone. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to step back. You're going to breathe. And then you're going to apologize to my son. Your grandson, Victoria spat. He's your grandson, not your... He's my son now. His mother is gone. I'm all he has. And I will protect him with everything I am and everything I have ever been. She released Victoria's wrist. The older woman stumbled backward, rubbing her arm, her face cycling through shock and humiliation and rage. You're insane, Victoria breathed. You're absolutely insane. Maybe. Maggie's voice was calm now, almost pleasant. But I'm also very, very good at what I do. And what I do is protect people who can't protect themselves. She turned, gathered Ethan close, and started walking away. Behind her, Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. This isn't over. Do you hear me? This isn't over. Maggie didn't turn around, but she smiled, because she knew Victoria was right. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. They were halfway down the walking path when Ethan finally spoke. Grandma, yes, sweetheart. What did you mean when you said you're good at what you do? Maggie looked down at her grandson. His eyes were wide, confused, processing everything he'd just witnessed. She knelt down, bringing herself to his level, the same way she'd done 1,000 times, the same way Rachel used to do. You know how I told you I was in the Navy before you were born? He nodded. You said you had an important job. That's right, I did. A very important job. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I was trained to protect people, Ethan, to keep them safe when things got dangerous, and that training never really goes away. Is that why you grabbed her arm like that? Yes. She was reaching for me. My body reacted before my brain could think about it. Ethan considered this. Were you scary in the Navy? Maggie smiled sadly. Sometimes, when I needed to be. Are you scary now? Only to people who threaten my family. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he wrapped his arms around her neck and held on tight. I'm glad you're scary, he whispered into her shoulder. I'm really, really glad. Maggie held him back, her eyes stinging with tears she wouldn't let fall. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. The apartment was small, but clean, a 2-bedroom unit in a building that had seen better decades, but still stood proud against the passing years. Maggie had decorated it with care photographs of Rachel on every surface, a folded flag in a shadow box on the mantle medals she never wore, but couldn't bear to hide away. Ethan went straight to his room, exhausted by the day's events. Maggie let him go, understanding the need for solitude. She stood in the kitchen, hands braced against the counter, breathing slowly. "What did you do?" She'd grabbed a civilian, a woman, in public, in front of witnesses and phone cameras. It was self-defense. She reached for you first. But that wouldn't matter, would it? Not to the Pattersons and their lawyers. Not to the school board. Not to the community that already saw her as an outsider, an inconvenience, a problem to be solved. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. 3 texts from unknown numbers, all variations of the same message. Video of incident at Westbrook Academy. Woman grabs wealthy parent. Anyone know who she is? It had already started. The phones, the social media, the court of public opinion. Maggie set down her phone and walked to the mantel, looked at her daughter's face frozen forever at 31. Brave. Beautiful. Gone. "What would you do, Rachel?" she asked the photograph. "What would you tell me?" The photograph didn't answer, but Maggie knew anyway. Protect him, Mom, no matter what, no matter the cost. She reached out and touched the glass, her fingertips resting where Rachel's cheek would be. "I will," she promised. "I swear to God, I will." The knock came at 8:47 p.m. Maggie was in the living room, television muted, watching the local news crawl for any mention of the incident. Ethan was asleep in his room, exhausted by the day. She approached the door, carefully checking the peephole out of habit. 2 people stood in the hallway. A man and a woman. Both in civilian clothes, but with a bearing Maggie recognized immediately. Law enforcement, or former military, maybe both. She opened the door but kept the chain on. "Can I help you?" The woman spoke first. Mid-30s, dark hair, sharp eyes. "Margaret Thornton." "Who's asking?" The woman produced credentials. "Detective Sarah Chen, Virginia Beach Police Department. This is Detective Marcus Webb. We'd like to ask you a few questions about an incident at Westbrook Academy this afternoon." Maggie studied the badges, then studied the detectives. Chen was watching her with professional interest. Webb was watching her with something else. Recognition. He knows Maggie realized, or at least suspects. Questions about what specifically? A parent at the school filed a complaint. Victoria Patterson. She alleges you assaulted her in the parking lot. I see. We've also received video footage from several witnesses. Mrs. Patterson's account doesn't exactly match what we're seeing. Chen paused. Which is why we're here, to get your side of the story. Maggie looked at the chain on her door, then at the 2 detectives waiting patiently in her hallway. She thought about Ethan sleeping peacefully in the next room. She thought about Rachel gone forever. She thought about Victoria Patterson's face twisted with hatred and contempt. And she made a decision. "Come in," she said, sliding the chain free. "I'll tell you everything." The detective sat across from Maggie at her small kitchen table, a recorder placed between them like a silent witness. Detective Chen had her notebook open. Detective Webb hadn't taken his eyes off Maggie since they'd entered the apartment. "Start from the beginning," Chen said. "What happened at the school today?" Maggie folded her hands on the table. Calm, controlled, the way she'd been trained. "I work as a custodian at Westbrook Academy. Today was Parent Showcase Day. Around 2:45, I heard my grandson crying in the east hallway. When I found him, 3 children were surrounding him. They were bullying him. Bullying how? Verbal abuse. They called him Toilet Boy because I cleaned the school. They told him his mother's scholarship was charity for losers." Maggie paused. "His mother was my daughter. She was killed in action 3 years ago. Navy. Special operations." Chen's pen stopped moving. Webb shifted in his chair. I'm sorry for your loss, Chen said quietly. Thank you, but that's not why you're here. No. Tell us about Mrs. Patterson. Maggie took a breath. After I removed Ethan from the situation, Principal Patterson came to see me. He accused Ethan of being aggressive with his daughter. I told him the truth. He didn't want to hear it. And then, we left the building. Mrs. Patterson intercepted us in the parking lot. She was angry. She started yelling. She called me a cleaning lady. She said we didn't belong at the school. Did she make physical contact first? Yes, she reached toward me. I don't know if she meant to grab me or push me. It doesn't matter. My training kicked in. I caught her wrist and immobilized it. Webb leaned forward. What kind of training, Mrs. Thornton? The question hung in the air. Maggie met his eyes. You already know, don't you? Webb held her gaze. I have suspicions. I served in Afghanistan, worked with some special operations units. You have a certain bearing. I was Navy, 28 years, retired as Senior Chief Petty Officer. Chen looked up from her notes. That's a long career. It was. What unit? Maggie was silent for a moment. Then she said very quietly, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. The words landed like stones in still water. Chen's face went blank with confusion. But Webb understood. Jesus Christ, he breathed. Chen looked at her partner. What does that mean? Webb's voice was hushed. DevGru. It's SEAL Team 6, the most elite special operations unit in the world. Chen turned back to Maggie. Her expression completely changed. You were a SEAL, one of the first women to complete the training and serve in an operational capacity. Yes. Silence filled the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere in the building, a dog barked. Chen set down her pen. Mrs. Thornton, why are you working as a janitor? Because my grandson needed me. His mother was killed. His father was never in the picture. I took early retirement to raise him. The job at Westbrook lets me be close to him during the day. Does the school know about your background? No, and I'd prefer to keep it that way. Webb shook his head slowly. Victoria Patterson has no idea who she messed with. No, she doesn't. Chen picked up her pen again, but her demeanor had shifted entirely. Mrs. Thornton, we've reviewed the video footage. Multiple witnesses confirm that Mrs. Patterson made the first aggressive move. You responded with minimal force. In my professional opinion, you showed remarkable restraint. I didn't want to hurt her. I just wanted her to stop. You could have done a lot more. Yes, I could have. The simple acknowledgement carried weight that made both detectives fall silent. Webb cleared his throat. Ma'am, I don't think you have anything to worry about legally, but I have to ask what happens now. The Pattersons have money connections. They're not going to let this go. Maggie looked toward the hallway where Ethan slept. I know. Do you have a plan? I always have a plan, Detective. But right now my only priority is protecting my grandson. Chen closed her notebook. We'll file our report. Based on the evidence, I don't anticipate any charges against you. But Mrs. Patterson may pursue civil action. Let her. You're not worried? Maggie turned back to face them. I've faced things that would give Victoria Patterson nightmares for the rest of her life. A lawsuit doesn't scare me. Webb stood extending his hand. For what it's worth, ma'am, thank you for your service. And if you ever need anything at all, here's my card. Maggie took it. Thank you, Detective. Chen stood as well. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. But between us, I think Mrs. Patterson picked the wrong person to mess with. She did. The detectives left. Maggie locked the door behind them and stood in the darkness of her apartment, listening to the silence. Tomorrow would bring new battles. She could feel them gathering like storm clouds on the horizon, but tonight her grandson was safe. And that was enough. It had to be enough. Morning came too fast. Maggie was up at 5:30, the habit of decades impossible to break. She made coffee, checked her phone, and found exactly what she'd expected. 47 text messages, 19 missed calls, her personal email overflowing with messages from addresses she didn't recognize. The video had gone viral overnight. She scrolled through the headlines on local news sites. Confrontation at elite academy. Wealthy parent claims assault by school employee. Video shows shocking incident at Westbrook Academy. None of them had her name yet, but it was only a matter of time. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Unknown number. She answered. Maggie. The voice was male familiar, carrying the gravel of too many cigarettes and not enough sleep. Jason. Jason Ramirez, her former teammate, one of the few people from her old life she still trusted. I saw the video, he said without preamble. Everyone's seen the video. It's all over the veteran forums. People are trying to figure out who you are. Let them try. Maggie, this is serious. Some reporter is going to dig into your background. They're going to find out who you are, what you did. And then the whole world will know. I understand. Do you? Because once this gets out, your life changes. Ethan's life changes. There's no going back. Maggie looked toward the hallway. Ethan's door was still closed. My life changed the day Rachel died, Jason. Everything since then has just been aftermath. Jason was quiet for a moment. What do you need? Nothing yet. But I might. Soon. I'm here. Whatever you need. You know that. I know. Thank you. She hung up and stood in the kitchen, coffee growing cold in her hands. The storm was coming. She could feel it in her bones, the same way she'd always felt danger approaching. But this time, she wasn't the hunter. She was the target. Ethan didn't want to go to school. He sat at the breakfast table pushing cereal around his bowl, his face pale and drawn. What if they're there? He asked quietly. Madison and her friends. They probably will be. What if they say more stuff? Maggie sat down across from him. Then you tell a teacher. And you tell me. The teachers don't do anything. I know. She reached across and covered his small hand with hers. But things are going to change, Ethan. I promise you that. How? Because I'm going to make them change. He looked up at her, hope and fear warring in his eyes. You're not going to get in trouble, are you? Because of what happened? I might, but that's not your concern. Your job is to be brave, go to school, and remember that you belong there just as much as anyone else. What if I can't be brave? Maggie squeezed his hand. Then borrow some of mine. I have plenty to spare. A tiny smile flickered across his face. Okay. Now finish your breakfast. We leave in 20 minutes. The walk to school felt different today. Maggie was hyper-aware of every car that passed, every person who glanced their way. She'd spent decades operating in hostile environments, reading threats in the smallest details. Now she was doing it in a suburban neighborhood, protecting an 8-year-old boy. The irony wasn't lost on her. They reached the school gates at 8:15. The usual crowd of parents and children flowed through the entrance, but Maggie noticed something immediately. People were staring. Not all of them, but enough. Clusters of parents whispering to each other, eyes flicking toward her and then away. Phones held at angles that weren't quite casual. The video had spread further than she'd realized. "Grandma, I see them. It's okay. Keep walking." They made it to the front entrance before someone stepped directly into their path. Victoria Patterson. She looked different today. Makeup heavier, covering what might have been a sleepless night. Her posture rigid with barely contained fury. "You," Victoria said. "You have some nerve showing your face here." Maggie stopped. Ethan pressed closer to her side. "My grandson has school, Mrs. Patterson. We're not here for you. Your grandson should have been expelled after yesterday. I've already spoken to my husband about it." "That's your right. And it's my right to walk my grandson to class." Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice to a hiss. "I know you think you won something yesterday, but you didn't. You don't know who you're dealing with." Maggie met her eyes, held them. "Neither do you." Something flickered in Victoria's face. That same animal recognition Maggie had seen in her husband's eyes. The instinct that said danger even when the mind couldn't identify why. But Victoria was too proud, too angry, too certain of her own superiority to listen to instinct. "This isn't over," she said. "Not even close." "I know." Victoria stalked away, her heels striking the pavement like gunshots. Maggie watched her go, then looked down at Ethan. "You okay?" He nodded, but his hand was trembling in hers. "Let's get you to class." The principal's office summons came at 9:30. Maggie was mopping the science wing when another custodian found her. Old Marcus, 70 years old, the kind of man who'd seen everything and been surprised by nothing. "Patterson wants you," Marcus said. "Front office, now." "Did he say why?" Marcus snorted. "Does he ever? But I heard his wife in there earlier yelling loud enough to wake the dead. Whatever this is, it ain't good." Maggie set down her mop. "Thanks, Marcus." "Maggie." He caught her arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "Whatever you did to that woman, I saw the video. Half the staff has. And I just want you to know most of us are on your side. Most, the ones who matter." He released her arm. "Good luck in there." The front office was quiet when Maggie arrived. Too quiet. The usual bustle of secretaries and ringing phones had been replaced by a tense stillness that reminded her of the moments before a mission went loud. The secretary, a woman named Carol, who'd always been kind to Maggie, looked up with sympathy in her eyes. "They're waiting for you in the conference room." The principal, his wife, and..." Carol hesitated. "There's a man in there I don't recognize. Expensive suit. He's been taking notes." "A lawyer, of course." Maggie straightened her shoulders. "Thank you, Carol." "Maggie," Carol's voice dropped to a whisper. "For what it's worth, everyone knows that Patterson girl is a bully. And her mother is worse. You did what any grandmother would do." "I appreciate that. Go get him." Maggie walked to the conference room and opened the door without knocking. 3 heads turned. Principal Patterson sat at the head of the table looking like a man caught between 2 armies. Victoria sat to his right, her face a mask of controlled fury. And to his left, a man in his 40s, silver-haired, shark-eyed, with a legal pad covered in precise handwriting. "Mrs. Thornton," Patterson said. "Please, sit down." Maggie remained standing. "I'll stand. What is this about?" The lawyer spoke first. "Mrs. Thornton, my name is Richard Hayes. I represent the Patterson family. We're here to discuss the incident yesterday and its consequences." "What consequences?" Hayes smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You physically assaulted Mrs. Patterson in front of numerous witnesses. That's a serious matter. I defended myself against someone who was reaching for me aggressively. That's not assault." That's a matter of interpretation. No, it's a matter of fact. Multiple witnesses confirm Mrs. Patterson made the first move. I responded with minimal force. The police have already reviewed the footage and found no grounds for charges. Hayes's smile flickered. Criminal charges are one thing. Civil liability is another. Then sue me. The words landed like a slap. Victoria's composure cracked. We intend to, she snapped. We're going to take everything you have. Your job, your reputation, my what? Maggie stepped closer to the table. My minimum wage janitor's salary, my 2-bedroom apartment, my dead daughter's medals. Victoria's mouth opened, closed. Go ahead, Mrs. Patterson. Sue me. Take me to court. Let's have a public trial where everyone gets to hear exactly what your daughter said to my grandson. Let's put it all on the record. Hayes held up a hand. That won't be necessary. We're prepared to settle this quietly. Are you? Yes, in exchange for a signed admission of wrongdoing and your immediate resignation from Westbrook Academy, my clients will not pursue civil action. Maggie laughed. It was the first time she'd laughed in days, and it surprised everyone in the room, including herself. You think I'm going to admit to something I didn't do? You think I'm going to resign and leave my grandson unprotected in this school? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Mrs. Thornton, no. Let me tell you how this is going to go. Maggie planted her hands on the table and leaned forward. You're going to drop this. All of it. The threats, the lawsuits, the intimidation. You're going to leave my grandson alone. And your daughter, she looked directly at Victoria, is going to learn that actions have consequences. Victoria stood so fast her chair scraped against the floor. How dare you? Sit down. 2 words. Quiet. Absolute. Victoria sat. Principal Patterson's face had gone gray. Mrs. Thornton, I have to ask you to— You don't have to ask me anything, Principal Patterson. You've done nothing to protect my grandson from your daughter's bullying. You've done nothing to address the harassment he's faced since the day he arrived. You've chosen your wife's family over an 8-year-old orphan whose mother died serving this country. That's not— It is. And we both know it. Maggie straightened. I'm done here. If you want to fire me, fire me. If you want to sue me, sue me. But understand this. I've spent 28 years in places you can't imagine doing things you couldn't comprehend. And I'm not afraid of any of you. She turned and walked toward the door. Mrs. Thornton. Hayes's voice was sharp. This isn't over. Maggie paused with her hand on the handle. You're right, Mr. Hayes. It isn't. But when it is, you're going to wish you'd taken my advice and walked away. She opened the door, stepped through, and closed it behind her. Her hands were steady. Her heart was pounding. And somewhere deep inside her, the woman she'd buried 3 years ago was waking up. The call came at noon. Maggie was eating lunch in the custodian's break room when her phone buzzed. She didn't recognize the number, but the area code was local. Hello? Mrs. Thornton. A woman's voice, professional but warm. My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a reporter with Channel 7 News. I was hoping to speak with you about the incident at Westbrook Academy. Maggie's grip tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? It's part of my job to find information, Mrs. Thornton. But I want to be upfront with you. I'm not here to ambush you or twist your words. I've seen the video. I've talked to witnesses, and I think there's a lot more to this story than what's being reported. What do you mean? I mean that Victoria Patterson is already doing interviews painting herself as a victim. She's saying you attacked her unprovoked, that you're mentally unstable, that you threatened her child. Maggie felt cold fury rising in her chest. That's a lie. I know. But lies become truth if no one challenges them. A pause. Mrs. Thornton, I also know who you are. Or rather, who you were. Maggie's blood turned to ice. I have sources in the veteran community. Your name has been circulating. Senior Chief Petty Officer Margaret Thornton Devgrew, 3 silver stars, 2 bronze stars, awarded the Navy Cross for actions in classified operations. How did you— Like I said, it's my job. Walsh's voice softened. Mrs. Thornton, you're a hero. A genuine American hero. And right now you're being portrayed as a villain by a woman who assaulted your grandson and then played the victim when you stopped her. What do you want? I want to tell the real story, your story, the story of a decorated veteran who gave everything for her country, lost her daughter to that same service, and now works as a janitor just to stay close to her orphaned grandson. The story of what really happened in that parking lot, and why. Maggie was silent for a long moment. She thought about Ethan, about Rachel, about the life she'd tried to build in the shadows, away from attention, away from recognition. That life was over now. Victoria Patterson had made sure of that. Maybe it was time to step into the light. When do you want to meet? Tonight, 7 o'clock. I'll text you the address. Walsh paused. And Mrs. Thornton, thank you for your service, for everything. The line went dead. Maggie stared at her phone, her reflection ghosting across the dark screen. So this is how it happens, she thought. This is how the world finds out who I am. She thought it would feel like defeat, like exposure, like vulnerability. Instead, it felt like the moment before a breach, the moment when all planning ended and pure action began. It felt like going operational. She picked Ethan up at 3:15, the same as always. But nothing else was the same. The whispers had multiplied. The stares had intensified. And as they walked through the parking lot, a car slowed beside them. Victoria Patterson's silver Mercedes. The window rolled down. Victoria's face appeared no longer masked with composure. Raw hatred burned in her eyes. Enjoy your last days here, she said. Both of you. The window rolled up. The car pulled away. Ethan looked up at Maggie, his face pale. What did she mean? Maggie watched the Mercedes disappear around the corner. She meant she's scared. Scared people make threats. Are you scared? Maggie looked down at her grandson. Rachel's eyes. Rachel's courage. No, she said. I'm not scared. Why not? She took his hand and started walking. Because I've been scared before, real scared, and I learned something important. What? Maggie squeezed his hand. Fear is just information. It tells you something matters. And you, Ethan, you matter more than anything in the world. They walked home together, grandmother and grandson, as the afternoon sun stretched their shadows long across the pavement. Behind them, the school stood silent. Ahead of them, the storm was building. And Margaret Thornton was ready. The news studio was smaller than Maggie had expected, but the lights were blinding. Jennifer Walsh sat across from her microphone, clipped to her blazer, note cards in hand. Camera operators moved in the shadows behind the glare-adjusting angles, checking focus. We're live in 5 minutes, Walsh said. Are you ready? Maggie smoothed the front of her blouse. She'd worn civilian clothes, simple and clean. No medals, no uniform. Just a 52-year-old grandmother about to tell the world who she really was. I've been ready for a long time. Walsh nodded. Remember, just talk to me. Forget the cameras. This is your story. Tell it the way you want it told. And Victoria Patterson, has she responded to your interview request? Walsh's smile was thin. She declined, but she's been doing plenty of talking to other outlets, painting you as unstable, aggressive, dangerous. I know, I've seen the headlines. Then you know why this matters. Her version is becoming the accepted truth. We need to change that. A production assistant counted down from the doorway. Walsh straightened in her chair. The red light on the main camera blinked to life. Good evening. I'm Jennifer Walsh, and tonight we have an exclusive interview with Margaret Thornton, the woman at the center of a viral confrontation at Westbrook Academy. Mrs. Thornton, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. Walsh leaned forward slightly. Let's start with the basics. You work as a custodian at Westbrook Academy. You're raising your 8-year-old grandson alone. That's what most people know. But there's much more to your story, isn't there? Maggie took a breath. Yes. Tell us. I served in the United States Navy for 28 years. I retired as a senior chief petty officer. That's an impressive career. What was your specialty? Here it was. The moment she'd avoided for 3 years. The truth she'd buried under gray polo shirts and mop buckets. I was part of Naval Special Warfare Development Group, what most people know as SEAL Team 6. Walsh's eyes widened slightly, even though she already knew. The reaction was for the cameras. You were a Navy SEAL. One of the first women to complete the training and serve in an operational capacity. Yes. Mrs. Thornton, that's extraordinary. Can you tell us more about your service? Maggie felt the familiar weight of memories pressing against her chest. I served in combat operations across multiple theaters. I can't discuss specifics due to classification, but I was awarded the Navy Cross, 3 Silver Stars, and 2 Bronze Stars for actions in the line of duty. Walsh was quiet for a moment, letting the information settle. Why didn't anyone at Westbrook Academy know about this? Because I didn't want them to know. After I retired, I wanted a quiet life. I wanted to be invisible. Why? Maggie looked directly into the camera. Because I lost my daughter. Walsh's voice softened. Your daughter was Rachel Thornton. She was also in the military. She followed in my footsteps, became a SEAL operator. She was killed 3 years ago protecting a convoy of children during an evacuation mission. Maggie's voice stayed steady, but something cracked deep inside her. She left behind a son. My grandson Ethan. He's the reason I'm still here. He's the reason I do everything. And that's why you took the job at Westbrook. Yes. Ethan received a scholarship through the military dependent program. The job let me stay close to him. Watch over him. Walsh paused, then shifted topics. Let's talk about what happened at the school. The confrontation with Victoria Patterson. Her version of events suggests you attacked her unprovoked. That's a lie. Tell us what really happened. Maggie recounted the events methodically. The bullying in the hallway, Principal Patterson's dismissal, Victoria's confrontation in the parking lot, the slap that struck Ethan's face, the reach that triggered her defensive response. I caught her wrist, Maggie said. That's all. I didn't strike her. I didn't throw her. I simply stopped her from making contact. The video seems to support that. It does, because that's the truth. Walsh leaned back. Mrs. Thornton Victoria Patterson has accused you of being mentally unstable. She's suggested that your military background makes you dangerous. Maggie felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. I spent 28 years learning to control myself in situations that would break most people. I've had weapons pointed at my head and not flinched. I've watched friends die and kept functioning. I know exactly how much force is appropriate in any situation, and I used the absolute minimum with Mrs. Patterson. You're saying your training actually makes you safer? I'm saying that if I were truly dangerous, Victoria Patterson would be in a hospital. Instead, she has a sore wrist. The words hung in the air. Walsh was silent for a moment. What do you want people to understand about this situation? Maggie looked into the camera again. I want them to understand that my grandson is an 8-year-old orphan whose mother died serving this country. He's been bullied and harassed at that school since the day he arrived. He's been told he doesn't belong. He's been called names I won't repeat on television." Her voice strengthened. "I want people to understand that Victoria Patterson slapped a child, an 8-year-old child, in public, and then she tried to destroy his grandmother for stopping her. Do you have any message for Mrs. Patterson?" Maggie paused, considered, then spoke. "Yes. Apologize to my son." Walsh blinked. "Your son, Ethan's mother, is gone. His father was never there. I'm all he has. When you raise a child, when you love them, when you would die for them, they become yours in every way that matters. So yes, my son, and she owes him an apology." Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Thornton. Thank you for your honesty, your service, and your courage." The red light blinked off. The interview was over. But Maggie knew this was just the beginning. The broadcast aired at 11. By midnight, it had been shared over 200,000 times. By morning, Margaret Thornton was a household name. Maggie watched the aftermath unfold from her kitchen table phone, buzzing constantly with calls and messages she didn't answer. News vans had parked outside her apartment building. Reporters knocked on her door every hour. Neighbors she'd never spoken to left notes of support under her mat. Ethan sat across from her eating cereal, watching her face. "Grandma, are you famous now?" Maggie smiled despite everything. "I hope not. Famous people don't get any peace." "Some kids at school said you were on TV. They said you're a superhero." "I'm not a superhero. I'm just someone who did a job for a long time." "But you saved people, right, like Mom?" The question pierced her heart. "Yes, like Mom." Ethan nodded solemnly. "Then you're a superhero. Both of you." Maggie reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Finish your breakfast. We need to figure out how to get you to school without walking through a crowd of reporters." Her phone buzzed again. This time she recognized the number. Detective Webb. "Mrs. Thornton, you've had a busy night." "Detective, what can I do for you?" "Actually, I'm calling to tell you what I can do for you. Victoria Patterson was brought in for questioning this morning." Maggie's heart skipped. What? Why? The interview changed things. The video of her slapping Ethan is being re-examined. Multiple witnesses have come forward with statements they were afraid to give before. And the school board has opened an investigation into Principal Patterson's handling of the situation. I didn't expect any of this. Neither did they. Mrs. Thornton public opinion has shifted dramatically. The Pattersons are facing something they've never faced before: accountability. Maggie closed her eyes. What happens now? Now we see if the pressure makes them crack or fight back harder. Based on what I know about Victoria Patterson, I'd bet on the latter. So would I. Watch your back, ma'am. People with money and power don't take humiliation well. I've faced worse. I know you have. But this kind of enemy is different. They don't shoot at you. They destroy you other ways. Maggie looked at Ethan, still eating his cereal, innocent of the war being waged around him. Let them try. School was chaos. News vans lined the street outside Westbrook Academy. Reporters shouted questions at every parent who passed. Photographers jostled for position near the entrance. Maggie had arranged for a colleague to escort Ethan through a side entrance, avoiding the circus entirely. But she couldn't avoid it herself. As she walked toward the main building, cameras turned her direction like predators spotting prey. Mrs. Thornton, is it true you're a Navy SEAL? Mrs. Thornton, do you have a response to Victoria Patterson's claims? Mrs. Thornton, Are you planning to sue the school? She kept walking, head up, eyes forward, silent. The crowd parted as she approached the entrance. Something in her bearing, her posture. Her eyes made people step aside without knowing why. Inside the school had transformed. Staff members who'd ignored her for months now watched her with a mixture of awe and nervousness. Students whispered and pointed. Teachers nodded respectfully. Carol, the secretary, intercepted her near the front office. "Maggie, the school board is here. They want to see you." "When?" "Now. They're in the conference room." "What about the Pattersons?" Carol's expression flickered. "Principal Patterson has been placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. His wife is not handling it well." "I imagine not." "Maggie," Carol lowered her voice, "be careful in there. The board members are politicians. They're looking for a way to make this go away quietly." "I know. Thank you, Carol." The conference room held 5 people, 4 school board members, and a woman Maggie didn't recognize. The board members were middle-aged, professionally dressed, wearing expressions of studied neutrality. The woman was younger, sharp-eyed, with a legal pad and an expensive pen. "Mrs. Thornton," the board chairman said. His name was Richard Holloway, and he had the look of a man who'd built his career on compromise. "Please have a seat." Maggie sat. "What is this about?" "We wanted to discuss the current situation and explore potential resolutions." "Resolutions," the woman spoke up. "My name is Patricia Reeves. I'm legal counsel for the school board. Mrs. Thornton, let me be direct. This situation has escalated beyond what anyone anticipated. The media attention is damaging to the school's reputation. Parents are threatening to withdraw their children. Donors are asking questions." "That sounds like your problem, not mine." Reeves's smile was tight. "We're hoping to make it everyone's solution. We'd like to offer you a settlement." Maggie's eyes narrowed. "A settlement for what?" "For the distress you've experienced. For the treatment your grandson has endured. For—" Reeves paused. "For your discretion going forward." "You want to pay me to stop talking?" "We want to resolve this matter in a way that benefits everyone." "Including Victoria Patterson." Silence. The board members exchanged glances. Holloway cleared his throat. "Mrs. Patterson is no longer our primary concern. The investigation has revealed troubling patterns. Her involvement with the school will be significantly reduced going forward." "And her daughter, Madison Patterson, will complete the school year, but she won't be returning next fall." Maggie absorbed this. "What about Principal Patterson?" "His future with Westbrook Academy is under review." "That's not an answer." Reeves stepped in. "We can't discuss personnel matters in detail, but I can tell you that significant changes are being considered." Maggie looked at each board member in turn. They couldn't meet her eyes. "You're scared," she said quietly. "Not of me. Of what this exposes about your school, about the culture you've allowed to develop, about the way you've protected wealthy families at the expense of children who can't fight back." Holloway's face reddened. "That's not—" "It is, and we all know it." She stood. "I don't want your settlement. I don't want your money. I want my grandson to be able to attend this school without being bullied, harassed, or made to feel less than because his grandmother cleans toilets. Mrs. Thornton, I want accountability, real accountability, not quiet settlements and backdoor arrangements. I want Victoria Patterson to face consequences for slapping a child. I want your school to have actual anti-bullying policies that are actually enforced. And I want every military family whose child attends this school to know that they belong here." She walked toward the door, then paused. "You asked what resolution I want. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. If you can deliver that, we have nothing to discuss. If you can't, then this is just the beginning." She left without waiting for a response. Victoria Patterson was waiting outside the conference room. She looked different than she had before. Smaller, somehow. Her immaculate appearance had frayed at the edges, hair not quite perfect makeup, not quite even hands trembling slightly at her sides. "You," Victoria said. "You've ruined everything." Maggie stopped. "I didn't ruin anything. You did that yourself." "I was trying to protect my daughter." "You were trying to protect your ego. Your daughter learned cruelty from watching you, and now you're both facing the consequences." Victoria's face contorted. "You don't understand. You couldn't possibly understand. My whole life I've worked to build something, to create something, and you just... I just refuse to be invisible anymore." Victoria's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, of rage. "They're going to take everything from me. My husband's job, our position in this community, our reputation, because of you." Maggie stepped closer. Victoria flinched, but didn't move. "No, because of what you did to an 8-year-old boy whose mother died protecting children just like your daughter. You slapped him. You humiliated him. You made him feel worthless. And then you tried to destroy the only family he has left." Victoria's tears spilled over. "I didn't know. I didn't know who you were." "It shouldn't have mattered. It shouldn't have mattered if I was a janitor or a senator or a homeless woman on the street. You don't hit children. You don't teach your daughter to be cruel. You don't use your money and your position to crush people beneath you." Victoria's composure shattered completely. She sagged against the wall, her designer clothes suddenly looking like a costume that no longer fit. "What do you want from me?" Maggie looked at her for a long moment. This woman who had caused so much pain. This woman who had never been held accountable for anything in her privileged life. "I told you what I want. Apologize to my son." Victoria's head snapped up. "What? Apologize to Ethan. Face to face. Let him see that even someone like you can admit when they're wrong." I can't just..." "Yes, you can. It's easy. You open your mouth and you say, 'I'm sorry.' You say, 'What I did was wrong.' You say, 'You didn't deserve that.'" Maggie paused. "It's the easiest thing in the world, unless you don't mean it." Victoria was silent for a long moment. Then slowly something shifted in her face. "Fine. I'll do it." "When?" "Now, if you want." Victoria wiped her eyes with shaking hands. "Before I lose my nerve." Maggie studied her, looking for deception, looking for manipulation. She found only exhaustion, and perhaps buried deep beneath years of entitlement, something that might have been genuine remorse. "Come with me." Ethan was in his classroom when they arrived. His teacher, Sarah Mitchell, looked startled when Maggie appeared in the doorway with Victoria Patterson behind her. "Mrs. Thornton, is everything—" "I need to borrow Ethan for a moment." Sarah's eyes flicked to Victoria, then back to Maggie. Whatever she saw in Maggie's face made her nod without further questions. "Ethan, your grandmother needs you." Ethan gathered his things and hurried to the door. He froze when he saw Victoria. "Grandma." Maggie knelt beside him. "It's okay. Mrs. Patterson has something she wants to say to you." Ethan looked at Victoria with wide, frightened eyes. The same eyes that had watched her hand strike his face. The same eyes that had filled with tears in that parking lot. Victoria knelt too. It was awkward, her expensive dress bunching against the floor, her face level with the child she'd hurt. "Ethan," her voice cracked. I owe you an apology." He didn't respond, just watched her. "What I did was wrong. Hitting you. Saying those things about you and your family, all of it was wrong." Victoria's voice broke. "Your grandmother, your mother, they're heroes. And you're not charity or trash or any of those terrible things I let my daughter say. You're a child who deserves to be treated with kindness." Ethan's lower lip trembled. "Why did you do it?" Victoria closed her eyes. "Because I was angry. Because I was scared. Because I'm not a good person and I didn't know how to be better." She opened her eyes. "But that's not an excuse. There is no excuse. I didn't do anything to you. I know. I know you didn't. And I'm so sorry." Tears were streaming down Victoria's face now. Her mask was completely gone. She wasn't a society queen anymore. She was just a woman who had done a terrible thing and was finally facing it. Ethan looked at Maggie. She gave him a small nod. He looked back at Victoria. Okay, I accept your apology." He paused. "But you should apologize to Madison too." Victoria blinked. "To Madison? Why?" "Because you taught her to be mean, and now she doesn't have any real friends, just people who are scared of her." Ethan's voice was surprisingly steady. "My mom always said that being mean makes you lonely, and Madison looks really lonely." Victoria stared at him. Then she started to cry harder. Maggie stood pulling Ethan gently back. "That's enough. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson." Victoria struggled to her feet. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything else." Maggie met her eyes. "Just be better. That's all any of us can do." Victoria nodded, wiping her face. Then she turned and walked away, her heels echoing in the empty hallway. Ethan tugged at Maggie's hand. "Grandma? Yes? Did I do okay?" Maggie knelt beside him and pulled him into a hug. "You did better than okay. You did something I couldn't do." "What? You showed mercy." Ethan hugged her back tightly. "Mom would have done the same thing, right?" Maggie felt tears sting her eyes. "Yes, baby, she would have." The rest of the day passed in a blur. News of Victoria's apology spread through the school like wildfire. Staff members whispered. Students stared. Parents who had avoided Maggie for months suddenly wanted to shake her hand. She ignored all of it. At 3:15, she collected Ethan from his classroom, and they walked toward the front entrance. The news vans were still there, but fewer now. The story was evolving, and the reporters were following new angles. Detective Webb was waiting by the main doors. "Mrs. Thornton, I heard what happened. Word travels fast. In this town always." He fell into step beside her. "Victoria Patterson is at the police station. She's giving a voluntary statement about the incident. Her lawyer isn't happy, but she insisted." Maggie stopped walking. "She's cooperating. More than cooperating. She's confessing. Assault on a minor. She's asking for a plea deal that includes community service and anger management counseling." Maggie felt something loosen in her chest. Not satisfaction, not triumph, just release. "What happens to her? Probably probation, maybe some fines. Her husband's career is finished either way. The school board just announced his official termination." "And Madison?" Webb shrugged. "That's above my pay grade. But I heard the family is looking at private schools in other districts." Maggie looked at Ethan, who was watching the exchange with curious eyes. "Is it over?" Webb smiled. "For now. But Mrs. Thornton people like you don't get quiet endings. You've become a symbol. The veteran grandmother who stood up to privilege and won. That's not something people forget." "I didn't want to be a symbol." "I know. But sometimes we don't get to choose." He tipped an imaginary hat and walked away, leaving Maggie and Ethan standing in the afternoon light. "Grandma," Ethan's voice was small. "Yes, can we get ice cream? I think we deserve ice cream." Maggie laughed. The first real laugh in weeks. "Yeah," she said. "I think we do." They walked together toward the parking lot, grandmother and grandson, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and orange. Behind them, Westbrook Academy stood in silence. Ahead of them, the world waited, and Margaret Thornton was finally ready to face it. The ice cream shop was quiet, just a few families scattered at tables, the soft hum of a freezer unit filling the silence. Maggie watched Ethan devour a double scoop of chocolate chip cookie dough, his face smeared with evidence of his enthusiasm. For a moment, everything felt normal. Her phone buzzed. Then again. Then a third time in rapid succession. She glanced at the screen. Jason Ramirez. 3 messages. Turn on the news. Channel 7. Now. Maggie, you need to see this. She looked around the shop. A television mounted in the corner was playing a muted broadcast. She couldn't see the screen clearly from her angle. "Ethan, stay here. Finish your ice cream." "Where are you going?" "Just to check something. I'll be right back." She walked to the counter where the young employee was scrolling through her phone with a bored expression. "Excuse me, can you turn up the TV?" The girl shrugged and grabbed a remote. The volume rose just as the news anchor's face filled the screen. "Breaking news tonight. Victoria Patterson, the woman at the center of the Westbrook Academy controversy, has released a statement through her attorney. In it, she claims that her earlier apology to 8-year-old Ethan Thornton was coerced by his grandmother, former Navy SEAL Margaret Thornton. Maggie's blood turned to ice. Patterson alleges that Thornton threatened her with physical violence if she didn't apologize publicly, and that the entire incident was orchestrated to destroy the Patterson family's reputation. Her attorney is calling for a full investigation and potential criminal charges against Thornton. The anchor continued, but Maggie had stopped listening. She walked back to the table where Ethan sat, his ice cream forgotten, now his eyes fixed on her face. "Grandma, what's wrong?" Maggie sat down slowly. Her hands were steady. Her voice was calm, but inside a storm was building. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just some grown-up problems." "Is it about that lady, Mrs. Patterson?" "Yes." "What did she do now?" Maggie looked at her grandson. 8 years old. Already bearing more than any child should. Already learning that the world wasn't fair, that people lied, that even apologies could be weapons. She changed her mind about being sorry. Ethan's face fell. "But she said she was wrong." "I know. Sometimes people say things they don't mean. That's lying." "Yes, it is." Ethan pushed his ice cream away. "I don't want this anymore." Maggie reached across and took his hand. "Hey, look at me." He looked up, his eyes wet. "What she does doesn't change what you did. You showed grace. You showed kindness. That was real. That was you. Nobody can take that away. But if she's lying, everyone will think you're the bad guy." "Maybe. For a while." Maggie squeezed his hand. "But the truth has a way of coming out. It always does." "How do you know?" Maggie smiled, but there was steel behind it. "Because I'm going to make sure of it." The drive home was silent. Maggie's mind raced through scenarios, contingencies, responses. Victoria had played her move. A desperate, reckless move, but potentially effective. The court of public opinion was fickle. One emotional interview could undo everything. Unless Maggie had proof. She thought about the moment in the hallway. Victoria's breakdown. Her tears. Her confession. Had anyone else witnessed it? Sarah Mitchell had seen them together, but she'd been in the classroom. The hallway had been empty. Except Maggie's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The security cameras. Westbrook Academy had cameras throughout the building. If one of them had captured the conversation, captured Victoria's genuine apology before she could twist the narrative. She needed that footage. They arrived at the apartment to find a familiar car parked outside. Detective Webb's sedan. He was leaning against the hood, arms crossed, face grim. "Mrs. Thornton, we need to talk." Maggie guided Ethan toward the building entrance. "Go inside. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me." "But Grandma, do as I say, now." Ethan hesitated, then nodded and disappeared through the entrance. Maggie turned to Webb. "Let me guess. Victoria Patterson's attorney has been making calls." "More than calls. They're filing a formal complaint, alleging coercion, intimidation, and harassment." "It's a lie. I know, but lies with money behind them have a way of sticking." Maggie stepped closer. "Detective, the school has security cameras. The hallway where Victoria apologized. If that footage exists, it's been requested." "By who?" "By us. And by Patterson's lawyers." Webb's jaw tightened. "Here's the problem. The school's security system was upgraded last year. All footage is stored on a cloud server managed by an outside company. And that company, they've received a court order to preserve all footage pending litigation." "That's good, isn't it?" "It would be, except the company also received a separate request from Patterson's legal team. They're claiming the footage was improperly obtained and should be excluded from any proceedings." "Can they do that?" "They're trying. If they succeed, that footage never sees the light of day." Maggie felt the ground shifting beneath her. "So it's a race. It's a war. And right now they have more soldiers." Webb reached into his jacket and produced a business card. "This is a lawyer. Former JAG specializes in cases involving veterans. She's good, and she's not afraid of money." Maggie took the card. "Catherine Hayes? She saw your interview. She wants to help. Pro bono. Why? Because she's got a daughter in the military. Because she believes in what you stand for." Webb paused. "And because she really, really hates bullies." Maggie looked at the card for a long moment. Then she slipped it into her pocket. "Thank you, Detective." "Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. I've seen ugly. I've lived ugly." Maggie met his eyes. "I'm not afraid." Webb nodded slowly. "No, I don't suppose you are." Catherine Hayes answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Thornton, I've been expecting your call." "Detective Webb gave me your card." "Good man, Webb. We served together briefly years ago." Hayes's voice was crisp, professional, but warm underneath. "I assume you've seen the news." "I have." "Victoria Patterson is making a desperate play. She's banking on the fact that her wealth and connections can outlast your credibility." "Can they? Not if I have anything to say about it." Hayes paused. "Mrs. Thornton, I need to ask you directly. That apology in the hallway, was it genuine?" "Yes, she broke down. She admitted everything. She was human for maybe the first time since I've known her." "And you didn't threaten her, didn't coerce her in any way?" "I gave her a choice. Apologize to my grandson or don't. She chose to apologize." "Good. That's what I needed to hear." Hayes's tone shifted to battle mode. "Here's what we're going to do. First, I'm filing an emergency motion to preserve and release that security footage. Second, I'm reaching out to witnesses. Sarah Mitchell, the teacher. Any staff members who might have seen you together. Third, I'm preparing a counterstatement for the media. What do you need from me? Your trust and your patience. This is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. I've run marathons in combat zones, Ms. Hayes. I can handle this." A brief laugh. "I bet you can. I'll be in touch tomorrow with next steps. In the meantime, don't talk to any reporters. Don't respond to any provocations. Just be the person you are. And who is that? A hero, whether you like it or not. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Maggie lay in darkness, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the apartment, the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional creak of settling walls, Ethan's soft breathing from the next room. She thought about Rachel. Her daughter had faced impossible situations with impossible odds, had made decisions in split seconds that meant life or death for herself and others. Had never flinched, never wavered, never stopped believing in what was right. Until the day she didn't come home. Maggie rolled onto her side and looked at the photograph on her nightstand. Rachel in uniform, smiling, strong, alive. "What would you do?" she whispered to the darkness. "What would you tell me?" The photograph didn't answer. But in Maggie's heart, she already knew. Fight. Protect Ethan. Don't let them win. "I won't," Maggie promised. "I swear to you I won't." Morning brought a new battlefront. Catherine Hayes called at 7:30 a.m. "We have a problem." Maggie's hand tightened on the phone. "What kind of problem?" "The security footage. It exists. The camera in that hallway was operational. But what? The footage has been corrupted. The company claims it was a technical glitch, but my investigator thinks it was deliberate. Someone with access to the system deleted the file and tried to cover their tracks." Maggie felt cold fury rising in her chest. The Pattersons. Almost certainly, but proving it is another matter. So we have nothing. We have your word against hers, and right now she's spending a lot of money to make her word louder. Maggie closed her eyes, took a breath, centered herself the way she had before 1,000 operations. There has to be another way. There might be. My investigator found something interesting. The camera in the hallway wasn't the only one recording. There's a camera at the end of the corridor that captures the entrance to that hallway. It might have caught you and Victoria walking together, might show body language timing. Is that footage intact? We're checking now. But Mrs. Thornton, even if we get it, it's circumstantial. It won't prove what was said. Then we need witnesses, someone who heard the conversation. Sarah Mitchell was in her classroom. She saw you together but didn't hear the apology. Maggie's mind raced. The hallway had been empty. She was certain of it. Victoria's breakdown had happened in privacy, which was probably why she felt safe enough to recant. But wait. The classroom door, Maggie said suddenly. What about it? It was open. Sarah left it open when she sent Ethan out to me. If it was open during Victoria's apology, then anyone inside might have heard. The students. There were students in that classroom. Silence on the line. Then Hayes spoke slowly. You want to involve children as witnesses. I want to find the truth. If one of those kids heard what Victoria said. It's risky. Defense attorneys eat child witnesses alive, and the Pattersons will spin it as you manipulating children to support your version. What choice do we have? Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Let me think about this. Let me talk to Sarah Mitchell, see if any of her students mentioned hearing anything. If there's a credible witness, we'll consider it. How long? Give me 24 hours. 24 hours. An eternity when your life was being dismantled piece by piece. Okay? 24 hours. The school was different when Maggie arrived. Not in any visible way. The buildings looked the same. The parents dropping off children looked the same. But there was a tension in the air, a weight that hadn't been there before. Maggie walked through the front entrance with her head high. She felt the stares, heard the whispers, ignored them all. Carol intercepted her near the main office. Maggie, you shouldn't be here. I still work here. Not anymore. Carol's face was pained. "The board met last night. Emergency session. They've placed you on administrative leave pending the outcome of the Patterson investigation." Maggie felt the news like a punch to the gut. "They can't do that." "They did." "I'm sorry, Maggie. I'm so sorry." "What about Ethan? He can still attend classes, for now." Carol lowered her voice. "But there's talk of reviewing his scholarship status. The Pattersons are pushing hard. They want to expel him, an 8-year-old orphan. They want to hurt you. He's just collateral damage to them." Maggie's hands clenched into fists. 28 years of training, 28 years of control, and she had never wanted to hurt someone as badly as she wanted to hurt the Pattersons right now. But she didn't. She couldn't. Not because of the law. Not because of consequences. Because Ethan was watching. Somewhere in this building, her grandson was learning what kind of person his grandmother really was, and she would not teach him that violence was the answer to injustice. "Tell the board I'll fight this. I know you will." Carol touched her arm. "We're rooting for you, Maggie. All of us who actually know you." "Thank you." Maggie turned and walked out of the school. Behind her, the doors closed with a sound like a cell door slamming shut. She was sitting in her car trying to decide her next move when her phone rang. Jason Ramirez. "Maggie, where are you?" "School parking lot. I just got suspended." "I heard. Listen, I've been making some calls, reaching out to the community. You're not alone in this." "What do you mean?" "I mean that your story has spread beyond local news. Veterans groups across the country are picking it up. Social media is exploding. #Justice for Maggie is trending." "I don't want to be a hashtag." "Too late. You're a symbol now, and symbols have power." "What kind of power?" "The kind that makes rich people nervous. The Patterson family is facing a PR nightmare. Their businesses are being review-bombed. Their social media accounts are being flooded with criticism. People are digging into their past, finding other incidents, other victims." "Other victims." Victoria Patterson has a history, Maggie. This isn't the first time she's used her position to bully people. It's just the first time someone fought back. Maggie absorbed this. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that we find those other victims, build a case, show the world that this isn't about one confrontation in a parking lot. It's about a pattern of behavior, a lifetime of entitlement and cruelty. That could take weeks, months. We might not need that long. One of my contacts reached out to me this morning, a woman who worked as a housekeeper for the Pattersons 5 years ago. She has stories, Maggie, stories that make what happened to you look mild." "Who is she?" "Her name is Maria Santos. She's scared. The Pattersons threatened her when she left, told her she'd never work again if she talked. But she saw your interview, she saw you stand up, and she wants to do the same." Maggie felt something shift in her chest. Not hope exactly, something harder, more determined. "Set up a meeting. Already done. Tonight, 7 o'clock. I'll send you the address." "Jason, thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank the woman who trained me. She taught me that we never leave a teammate behind." He hung up. Maggie stared at her phone at the reflection of her own face in the dark screen. We never leave a teammate behind. Rachel had lived by that creed, died by it too. And now Maggie would honor it the only way she knew how. Maria Santos was small and soft-spoken with tired eyes and hands that trembled when she lifted her coffee cup. They met in a diner on the edge of town, far from the wealthy neighborhoods where the Pattersons held court. Jason sat beside Maggie, his presence a quiet reassurance. "Thank you for meeting me," Maggie said. Maria nodded, her eyes darting to the door. "I shouldn't be here. If they find out, they won't. I promise." Maria took a shaky breath. I worked for them for 3 years, cleaning, cooking, taking care of Madison when she was little. Her voice dropped. Mrs. Patterson was difficult. Difficult how she screamed, all the time, at me, at the other staff, at Madison. If something wasn't perfect, if a glass had a water spot or a pillow wasn't positioned exactly right, Maria shook her head. She would rage for hours. Did she ever hit you? Maria's silence was answer enough. She hit me twice, once with her hand, once with a book. Maria's eyes filled with tears. I didn't report it. I needed the job. My children needed me to have that job. Why did you leave? Madison. She was 6 years old, and she was already becoming her mother. Cruel to the other children. Mean to the staff. She broke my daughter's toy once on purpose just to see her cry. Maria wiped her eyes. I couldn't stay. I couldn't watch that child become a monster. What happened when you left? Mrs. Patterson told me I would never work in Virginia again. She said she would destroy me if I ever talked about what happened in that house. Maria's voice hardened. But I saw you on television. I saw you stand up to her. And I thought, if she can do it, maybe I can too. Maggie reached across the table and took Maria's trembling hands. You're not alone. Whatever happens, you're not alone anymore. Maria looked at her with something like wonder. You really were a SEAL. Yes. And you clean toilets now. For that school. I did. Until today. Maria shook her head slowly. The world is strange. The strongest woman I've ever met, and she mops floors. The weakest woman I've ever met, and she lives in a mansion. Strength isn't about where you live. It's about what you do when it matters. Maria squeezed Maggie's hands. I want to help. Whatever you need. I'll tell my story. It might get difficult. The Pattersons will fight back. Let them. I've been scared for 5 years. I'm tired of being scared. Jason spoke for the first time. There may be others. Other employees, other people Victoria has hurt. If we can find them, build a coalition. I know some names, Maria said. People who left before me. People who were too afraid to speak. She looked at Maggie. But if you lead, they might follow. Maggie thought about the road ahead, the battles still to fight, the enemies still to face. And she thought about Ethan, about Rachel, about every person who had ever been made to feel small by someone with more power and less conscience. Then let's give them someone to follow. She got home at 10 o'clock to find Ethan still awake, sitting on the couch with his knees pulled to his chest. Hey, why aren't you in bed? I couldn't sleep. He looked up at her with worried eyes. Are you okay, Grandma? I'm fine. You're lying, I can tell. Maggie sat down beside him, pulling him close. You're too smart for your own good, you know that. Mom used to say the same thing. The words hit Maggie like a wave. She held him tighter. I'm not going to lie to you, Ethan. Things are hard right now, but I'm fighting, and I'm not going to stop fighting until we win. What if we don't win? Maggie pulled back to look at his face. Her daughter's eyes. Her daughter's courage. Then we'll know we did everything we could, and that's all anyone can ask. Ethan nodded slowly. Then he leaned against her shoulder. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, baby. More than anything in this world. They sat together in the darkness, grandmother and grandson, as the night wrapped around them. Tomorrow would bring new battles, but tonight they had each other. And that was enough. 3 days later, everything changed. Catherine Hayes called at 6:15 a.m., her voice electric with urgency. We found it. Maggie sat up in bed, instantly alert. Found what? A witness, a real one, not a child. Better. Who? The school's IT technician, a man named Robert Chen. He was in the server room that morning, which shares a wall with the hallway where Victoria apologized. The wall is thin. He heard everything. Maggie's heart pounded. Everything, every word, Victoria's breakdown, her admission of guilt, her genuine apology, all of it. Hayes paused. And he recorded it. What? He was testing audio equipment for the school's new PA system. Had a microphone running to check sound levels. It captured the entire conversation through the wall. Maggie closed her eyes. Why didn't he come forward before? He was scared. His wife works for a company that does business with Patterson's law firm. He thought speaking up would cost her job. Hayes's voice hardened. But when he heard Victoria was calling you a liar, calling the apology coerced, he couldn't stay silent anymore. When can I hear it? I'm emailing it to you now. But Maggie, I have to warn you, Victoria's lawyers are going to fight this. They'll claim the recording was illegal, that it's inadmissible, that let them fight. The truth doesn't need a courtroom to matter. Hayes laughed softly. No, it doesn't. The recording lasted 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Maggie listened to it 3 times, sitting at her kitchen table as dawn light crept through the windows. Every word was clear. Victoria's tears, her confession, her genuine remorse, and then Ethan's voice, small and brave, accepting her apology. Maggie wiped her eyes and forwarded the file to Jennifer Walsh at Channel 7. Within an hour, the reporter called back. This is explosive. You're sure it's authentic? Robert Chen is willing to go on record. He'll testify to how it was recorded, when, where, everything. And you want me to air it. I want the truth out there. Whatever happens after that is up to the public. Walsh was quiet for a moment. You know what this will do to Victoria Patterson? Yes. It will destroy her. Maggie thought about that. About destruction. About mercy. About the difference between justice and revenge. She made her choice when she lied. When she tried to take my grandson's future to save her own reputation. I'm not destroying her. I'm just letting the truth speak. Walsh exhaled slowly. We'll air it tonight. 6 o'clock news. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The next 24 hours are going to be a firestorm. I've survived firestorms before. Ethan was unusually quiet at breakfast. Maggie watched him push scrambled eggs around his plate, his face troubled. What's on your mind? He looked up. Is it true what the kids at school are saying? What are they saying? That Mrs. Patterson is going to jail, that her family is ruined, that... He hesitated. That it's because of us. Maggie set down her coffee cup. What do you think? I don't know. I mean, she was mean. She hit me. She said terrible things. His voice dropped. But Madison is still my age, and now everyone hates her. Maggie felt pride swell in her chest. Her grandson, 8 years old, worrying about the child of his tormentor. Rachel would have done the same thing. Ethan, listen to me. What's happening to the Patterson family isn't because of us. It's because of choices Victoria made. She chose to hit you. She chose to lie. She chose to try and destroy us instead of taking responsibility. But Madison didn't choose. No, she didn't. Maggie reached across and took his hand. And that's why we don't celebrate when bad things happen to them. We don't gloat. We don't pile on. What do? We hope they learn. We hope Victoria becomes a better person. We hope Madison doesn't follow in her mother's footsteps. Maggie squeezed his hand. And we move forward with our own lives being the best people we can be. Ethan nodded slowly. Grandma? Yes. I'm glad you're my grandma. Maggie smiled, her eyes stinging. I'm glad you're my grandson. The broadcast hit like a bomb. Channel 7 led with the story playing the full audio recording with Victoria's permission unnecessary, as Robert Chen had recorded it in his capacity as a school employee testing equipment. Legal experts consulted by the station confirmed it fell within acceptable recording guidelines. Victoria's voice filled living rooms across Virginia. Her tears, her confession, her genuine apology. And then her later denials played side by side in damning contrast. By 7 p.m., the Patterson family's lawyer had issued a statement announcing they were dropping all legal action against Margaret Thornton. By 8 p.m., Victoria Patterson had released a video statement of her own tearfully acknowledging that she had lied about the coercion allegations. By 9 p.m., justice. For Maggie wasn't just trending. It was everywhere. The phone calls came flooding in. News networks wanting interviews, talk shows wanting appearances, book publishers wanting her story, movie producers wanting rights. Maggie ignored them all. Instead, she sat on her small couch with Ethan curled against her side, watching a documentary about ocean life that had nothing to do with anything. Her phone buzzed. Jason Ramirez. Proud of you, teammate. You did it. She typed back. We did it. All of us. A moment later. So, what's next? Maggie looked at Ethan, already half asleep against her shoulder. She looked at Rachel's photograph on the mantel. She looked at the medals in their shadow box, the folded flag, the remnants of a life of service. I don't know yet. But whatever it is, it'll be on my terms. Jason's response was a single emoji. A salute. Maggie smiled and set down her phone. Tomorrow would bring new questions, new challenges, new decisions. But tonight, her grandson was safe. The truth had won, and that was enough. 1 week later, the school board made its decision. Maggie stood in the conference room where she'd once been threatened and dismissed, but this time everything was different. The board members looked at her with something that might have been respect. Or perhaps it was simply the fear of crossing someone who had become a national symbol. Richard Holloway cleared his throat. Mrs. Thornton, on behalf of the Westbrook Academy Board of Education, I want to formally apologize for the treatment you and your grandson have experienced at our institution. I appreciate that. We've conducted a thorough review of our policies and practices. Principal Patterson's employment has been terminated. New anti-bullying protocols are being implemented, and... He paused, glancing at his colleagues. We'd like to offer you a new position. Maggie raised an eyebrow. What kind of position? Veterans liaison and student advocate. You'd work directly with military families, ensuring their children receive proper support and protection. Full salary, full benefits, flexible hours to accommodate your grandson's schedule. Maggie considered this. And my custodial position. Eliminated if you accept the new role. We think your talents are better suited to no. Holloway blinked. No, I want to keep cleaning, part-time, in addition to the new role. The board members exchanged confused glances. Mrs. Thornton, with respect, you're a decorated war hero. You don't need to. I know I don't need to. I want to. Maggie leaned forward. Every child in this school should grow up understanding that there's dignity in all work. That the person mopping the floors might have saved lives in combat, that you can never judge someone's worth by their job title. She looked at each board member in turn. If my grandson sees his grandmother cleaning toilets and advocating for veterans on the same day, he'll learn something no textbook can teach him. He'll learn that real strength has nothing to do with status. Silence filled the room. Then Patricia Reeves, the board's legal counsel, spoke. I think that's the most profound thing I've heard in this room in 20 years. Holloway nodded slowly. Then we'll make it work. Whatever you need, Mrs. Thornton. What I need is simple. Treat every child in this school the way you'd want your own children treated. The scholarship kids, the wealthy kids, everyone. That's all I've ever wanted. We can do that. Then we have a deal. The return to Westbrook Academy felt like a homecoming. Maggie walked through the front entrance on her first day back, this time wearing a blazer over her custodial polo. A ridiculous combination, she knew, but it made a statement. Students stared as she passed. Some whispered. A few waved. One boy, a sixth grader she'd never spoken to, stopped directly in front of her. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Thornton the SEAL?" "Former SEAL, yes." His eyes widened. "My dad was in the army, Afghanistan. He said to tell you thank you, for what you did, for standing up." Maggie felt warmth spread through her chest. Tell your dad thank you for his service. And tell him his son seems like a fine young man. The boy beamed and hurried off to class. Carol was waiting near the main office, tears in her eyes. "You came back." "I never really left." "I know, but seeing you here after everything." Carol pulled her into a hug. "I'm so proud of you, Maggie. We all are." "I didn't do anything special. I just told the truth." These days, that's the most special thing anyone can do. The assembly was scheduled for 2 p.m. Veterans Day had fallen on a Wednesday this year, and Westbrook Academy had planned a special program to honor military families. The timing was coincidental, but Maggie couldn't help feeling that the universe had arranged things perfectly. She stood backstage, listening to the hum of hundreds of students, parents, and staff filling the auditorium. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. But her heart was racing. "Grandma." She turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, dressed in his best shirt, his hair actually combed for once. "Hey, sweetheart. What are you doing back here?" "I wanted to see you before you go on." He shuffled his feet. "Are you nervous?" "A little." "You nervous?" He sounded genuinely shocked. "But you were a SEAL. You've done way scarier things than talking to a bunch of people." Maggie knelt down to his level. "You know what's scarier than combat?" "What? Caring about what people think. In combat, I didn't care if the enemy respected me. But here, these are people I'll see every day. People whose opinions matter. That's a different kind of scary." Ethan considered this. "But they already like you. Everyone knows you're a hero now." "I'm not a hero, Ethan. I'm just someone who did her job for a long time and then did what any grandmother would do." "That's what heroes say, Grandma. That's how you know they're real." Maggie pulled him into a hug, squeezing tight. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned it from you. And from Mom." The words hit her like a wave of grace. She held him tighter, feeling tears slide down her cheeks. "Your mother would be so proud of you, Ethan. So incredibly proud." "I know." His voice was muffled against her shoulder. "I can feel her sometimes. When I'm scared or sad or when good things happen, I feel her watching." Maggie pulled back, looking into his eyes. Rachel's eyes. "I feel her too." Then a staff member appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Thornton, they're ready for you." Maggie stood straightening her blazer. "Okay, here we go." Ethan grabbed her hand. "Can I walk out with you, please?" She looked at him. Her grandson, her son, her whole world. "I wouldn't have it any other way." The auditorium fell silent as they walked onto the stage. Maggie saw faces she recognized. Sarah Mitchell beaming from the third row, Carol dabbing her eyes with a tissue, Detective Webb standing against the back wall with his arms crossed, Robert Chen, the IT technician, sitting with his wife. And scattered throughout the crowd, men and women in civilian clothes who carried themselves with a particular bearing. Veterans. Her people. She reached the podium and looked out at the sea of faces. My name is Margaret Thornton. Some of you know me as the woman who cleans your school. Some of you know me from what's been on the news lately. And some of you are just learning who I am today. She paused, gathering her thoughts. 28 years ago, I made a choice. I chose to serve my country in a way that very few women had ever served before. It wasn't easy. It wasn't glamorous. And it cost me things I can never get back. Her voice caught. She pushed through, but I would do it again. Every mission, every sacrifice, every scar. Because I believed then, and I believe now, that there are things worth fighting for. Freedom. Justice. The people we love. She looked at Ethan standing beside her with his chin held high. 3 years ago, I lost my daughter, Rachel Thornton. She followed me into the Navy, followed me into special operations, and ultimately gave her life protecting a convoy of children during an evacuation mission. Silence. Absolute silence. I thought my fighting days were over when I buried her. I thought I would live out my years in quiet anonymity, mopping floors and raising her son. But life had other plans. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some of you were there when a woman slapped my grandson in this school's parking lot. Some of you watched the aftermath unfold on television. Some of you probably have opinions about what I did and whether I did it right. She gripped the podium. But here's what I want you to understand. I didn't fight back because I'm a SEAL. I didn't stand up because I wanted attention or vindication or revenge. I did it because that's what we owe each other. We owe each other protection. We owe each other truth. We owe each other the basic dignity of being treated like human beings regardless of our jobs or our bank accounts or our social status. She looked at the veterans scattered through the audience. To my brothers and sisters in uniform, past and present, I want to say, our service doesn't end when we take off the uniform. Every day we have opportunities to serve, to protect those who can't protect themselves, to stand up when others stay silent, to be the example our children need. She looked at the children, rows of young faces watching her with wide eyes. And to the students of this school, I want you to remember something. The person cleaning your classroom might be a hero. The person driving your bus might have medals you'll never see. The person serving your lunch might have stories that would take your breath away. Never ever assume you know someone's worth by how the world sees them. She looked at Ethan again. He was crying silently, but smiling. My daughter used to say that true strength isn't about what you can do to others. It's about what you can do for others. She lived that belief. She died for it. Maggie's voice broke, but she kept going. And every day I try to honor her memory by teaching her son the same lesson. She stepped back from the podium. I'm not a hero. I'm just a grandmother who loves her grandson. But if my story teaches anyone anything, I hope it's this: stand up, speak truth, protect the vulnerable, and never ever be ashamed of who you are. Silence. Then from the back of the auditorium, someone started clapping. Detective Webb. His hands coming together slowly, deliberately. Others joined. The veterans first rising to their feet, one by one. Then Sarah Mitchell. Then Carol. Then Robert Chen. Then everyone. The entire auditorium was standing applauding, some wiping tears, others simply watching her with something like reverence. Ethan tugged at her sleeve. Grandma, they're standing up for you. No, sweetheart. Maggie pulled him close. They're standing up for what we all should be. After the assembly, after the handshakes and the photographs and the tearful thank yous, Maggie and Ethan walked home together. The afternoon sun was warm. The streets were quiet. And for the first time in weeks, Maggie felt at peace. Grandma. Yes, what happens now? Maggie thought about the question. About all the roads that had led here. About all the roads that lay ahead. Now we live, we go to school, we do our jobs, we take care of each other. That's it. That's everything, Ethan. That's the whole point. He nodded, processing this. Then he slipped his hand into hers. I think Mom would be happy with how things turned out. Maggie squeezed his hand. I think so too. They walked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ethan spoke again. Can you teach me what you know? What do you mean, the stuff you learned, in the Navy? How to be strong, how to be brave, how to... He struggled for words. How to be like you. Maggie stopped walking, knelt down, looked into his eyes. Ethan, I've been teaching you since the day you came to live with me. Every dinner we share. Every homework problem we solve. Every time I hold you when you're scared or celebrate when you succeed. That's the teaching that matters. But the fighting stuff, the SEAL stuff. Maggie smiled. If you really want to learn, I'll teach you. But not because I want you to fight. Because I want you to never have to. Ethan hugged her hard and fierce. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. More than all the stars in the sky. They stood up together and continued walking. Behind them, Westbrook Academy stood in the distance. Ahead of them, home waited. And somewhere in whatever place held the souls of those who died with honor. Rachel Thornton watched her mother and her son walking hand in hand and smiled. Because this was what she had fought for. This was what she had died for. Not glory, not medals, not recognition. Love. Family. The quiet courage of ordinary days. And in the end, that was the only victory that ever truly mattered. Maggie tucked Ethan into bed that night, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. Grandma, yes. Do you think she's proud, Mom? Maggie looked at the photograph of Rachel that Ethan kept on his nightstand. Young, strong, smiling forever. I know she is. How do you know? Because I feel it, right here. She placed her hand over her heart. She's part of me. Part of you. And she always will be. Ethan's eyes drifted closed. Tell her I love her. When you talk to her. I will, baby. I promise. She sat with him until his breathing deepened into sleep. Then she stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the night sky. Stars scattered across the darkness like diamonds on velvet. We did it, Rachel, she whispered. We're okay. He's okay. And he's going to grow up to be someone amazing. The stars didn't answer. But in the silence, Maggie felt something. A warmth, a presence, a love that transcended death itself. She closed her eyes and let the tears fall. Not tears of grief, not tears of pain, tears of gratitude for the life she had, for the grandson who made everything worthwhile, for the daughter who had given her both the greatest joy and the deepest sorrow of her existence. When she opened her eyes, she was smiling. Because Margaret Thornton had learned something in her 52 years on this earth. She had learned that strength wasn't about winning battles. It was about protecting what mattered. It was about standing up when others stayed silent. It was about loving fiercely and fighting fearlessly and never ever giving up. And most of all, it was about knowing that no matter what the world threw at you, no matter how dark the night became, there would always be a new morning. There would always be another chance to be better. There would always be love. She walked to Ethan's door, looked at her sleeping grandson one more time, and whispered the words she'd carried in her heart since the day her daughter handed him to her. "I've got you, baby. I've got you." Then she turned off the light and let the darkness embrace them both. Outside, the stars continued their eternal watch. And in a small apartment in Virginia, a grandmother and her grandson slept peacefully safe at last. Because some battles are won with weapons. Some battles are won with words. But the battles that matter most are won with love. And Margaret Thornton had won them all.